Welcome to the empowering world of the Ladies Who Leap podcast, where brave souls share their remarkable journeys of venturing beyond their comfort zones to craft lives filled with passion and purpose. Tune in to hear the awe-inspiring tales of individuals who dared to defy their fears and embrace the unknown, paving the way for a future they truly adore. Welcome to the Ladies Who Leap podcast. Hi, welcome to the Ladies Who Leap podcast. Today, I am so excited to have Peggy Sullivan. Peggy is a renowned keynote speaker, author, researcher, and expert in the field of overcoming busyness and achieving peak performance. With years of extensive research and a transformative methodology, Peggy has helped individuals and organizations unlock their true potential without compromising well-being or happiness. Her research-backed framework has been successfully implemented by numerous individuals and teams and Fortune 500 companies, including Google, Bank of America, Blue Cross Blue Shield, which I know very personally, and Ingram Micro. Driven by her mission to shift the narrative from busy to fulfilled, Peggy is dedicated to empowering individuals and businesses to prioritize meaning and happiness over the hustle culture. In her latest book, Beyond Busyness, How to Achieve More with Less, she teaches her signature busy busting framework, a practical three-step methodology that has already benefited thousands, guiding them away from the busy treadmill and towards a life filled with intention, fulfillment, and remarkable outcomes. I love everything I just read. And I just want to say that I'm honored to have you on the Ladies Who Leap podcast. You're such a well-known author and keynote speaker, and you've done many TV spots and you've been featured in magazines. So thank you for coming on my podcast. And
You're
people don't
kidding
realize.
me. I so relate to this treadmill, this hamster wheel that women find themselves on. And it's not like it's the desired state, it's the default state. And so people just need a little help, a little support, knowing what to do differently and how to do it. And that's why I'm here. I want to see everybody shine and step into their power and be their personal best, but do it in a way where they're happy and healthy and have a sense of purpose and fulfillment. And yes, ladies, it is possible.
Yeah. And for those that are going to be leaping or are in the middle of their leap, this is a huge thing to make consideration for. In other words, take the time because you still want to enjoy life, even though you're going for this goal, you're going for this dream. So we talked about your experience in childhood. And I love to start with that and how it shaped what you're doing today and who you are today. Can you explain that connection?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was the daughter of an immigrant, and so I was always exposed to hard work equals success, and being busy is the key to success. And so that's how I spent my early adulthood. And I hustled and I worked hard and I got promoted to bigger and better jobs and more money and more responsibility and bigger and better jobs and more money and more responsibility. And then all of a sudden, it was like I was running hard, and my sense of purpose, my sense of fulfillment, my relationships, everything started to fall apart. It started with, I came home one day, Blue Cross Blue Shield, I was working there, and I was exhausted and I was hungry. So I opened the cupboard to find anything edible. I was a single mom. I didn't grocery shop a lot. And I found this stale bag of pistachio nuts and I chomped them down. And then my cat starts purring up at me saying, hey, Mom, would you feed me too? I haven't eaten in over 10 hours either. So I throw some kibbles into his dish and I fall asleep on the couch. And next thing I know, the cat is throwing up pistachio nuts and I see remnants of cat food in my hand. And I remember thinking to myself, these nuts don't taste right. They're salty, they're chewy. I should get to the store and get some new ones. But I was in such a burnt out haze. I just kept on chomping and I was on autopilot. So that was the first thing that happened that was a little bit of a wake up call like, okay, Peggy, cat food for dinner. And you kind of realized it, but you didn't look down and put two and two together. You're running on this hamster wheel and you're not really thinking about what you're doing. And shortly after that, my relationship started to really struggle. I was married for 18 years and my husband came home and he was like, I'm not happy. You're not spending any time on our relationship. We've grown apart. I'm done.
Well,
And
let
he
me ask you,
left.
let me interrupt for 1 second before we get more into the adult story of the leaping that you took and why. What is it that in your childhood that prompted you to think that this is the path that you should take? Is that you should keep doing one job after another and just keep moving? I mean, who was it that gave you that work ethic that really got you to the point where you were so burnt out you needed to make a change in your life?
Yeah, it was definitely my father. My mother was a stay-at-home mom and she was very content with that and that's all she ever needed and wanted. But my dad was a workaholic and he did really well. And it afforded him some nice luxuries and some great trips and a house and all those things. And he had also come from Germany during the Holocaust. So his family came over to America with nothing. So my father was, to say he was obsessed with making it in the world and kind of staying in a comfortable state. I mean, that's where he was, and you can kind of understand when everything's pulled out from under you and you have to start again. He watched his parents do that, and as a child of 8 years old, he had to make new friends. He had to learn to speak English, go to a new school. He even had to get a part-time job. So kind of understand where and why what set him up. So that's all I knew. And I was 30 years ago when I was busy into my job and into my career, success bred success. And the more successful I got, the more successful I wanted to be. And I just kept on raising that bar and raising that bar and not really noticing the price tag of the things that I was paying. And for many people, they don't. It's just maybe if a relationship has failed, maybe it's a marriage, maybe it's a friendship that you've been ignoring, or hey, you don't have a friendship when you don't make time to spend time with somebody. Maybe it's a hobby you're ignoring. Maybe it's your self-care that you're throwing on the back burner. All of those things. And unfortunately, we usually wait for a wake-up call to say, oh my God, I need to do this thing called life differently. But really, if we catch it before it needs to be caught, that's the best thing ever, because then we don't have to deal with all of the price tag. I mentioned earlier about my failed marriage. I mean, I didn't see it coming. I didn't know my husband was so unhappy. I was so busy at work and so focused on striving and driving that when he came home one day, it was a shock to me. What do you mean you don't want to be married anymore? What do you mean your switch has flipped? I didn't see that. I didn't notice that. And that's what happens when you're busy.
Yeah.
You don't notice really important things.
Yeah, or you're sitting down with your cat and realizing, oh my God, you're putting your finger in the bowl of the cat food rather than the pistachios, and the pistachios are being eaten by your cat. I mean, that's a wake up call.
Yeah.
You have this thing where you call things time poverty. You came to understand what time poverty is. I know you've probably been talking a little bit about it, but why do so many, because I know you've done research, you're a really big researcher. And why do so many people suffer from this? And how did you decide to research that topic so you could write a book on how to avoid it?
Well, let's first explain this concept of time poverty. And it's that feeling that you get to the end of your day and you didn't have time to do what was important to you. You missed something. Maybe you wanted to have dinner with your family. Maybe there was this project that you're really passionate about, but you didn't get a chance to work on it. Whatever it was, you have this feeling like there's not enough time in the day. And so it's a frustrating, debilitating feeling. And usually when I ask people, how do you feel when you feel time poor? They're like angry, frustrated, stressed. It's not a good thing, but yet our hustle society, they tell us busyness is good. It's a status symbol. It's a sign of importance. That doctor that you have to wait 6 weeks to see, he is worth waiting for because he's busy. He must be good. And we kind of glorify, the people that work long hours. I got a neighbor who leaves at 7 a.m. in the morning, doesn't come home till 7:30 at night. He has 4 beautiful children, has never had dinner with them during the work day once this year. I mean, but he's a rock star. He's been promoted 4 times, right? That's great.
Yeah, society teaches us that going up, moving up the ladder. Although I think with books like yours and a lot of other people's books, things are starting to shift. I mean, it's a little bit here and there, but things are a little bit starting to shift to show and to have people understand that the hustle bustle every day, just trying to make more money and move up the ladder, is not really where life is all about. It's the experience with family, friends, and really enjoying each moment. I love that one of your first leaps was to create a nonprofit. So it shows how much you care about helping others. Can you talk to that journey and that decision and how it affected your life?
Sure. So I was busy in the corporate treadmill and worked for big companies and traveled the world and used to keep a post-it note on my clock telling me what city I was in and when I was coming back home. And then my father got sick and I wanted to be there to help him. It was later in his life. So I quit my job to take care of him. And it got me thinking about my legacy and how he worked so hard. And I started thinking, what is my legacy? What do I want to do? And I realized that for me, I had been working for about 25, 30 years, that women don't have it as easy as men. And I'd love to say it's different, but I don't believe it is. I remember the first time I got a big job and I worked so hard and it was a perfect position for me. But I can remember my boss saying, I can't believe I just hired a woman. And it was like, whoa, and I remember walking into a meeting when they were all saying, be quiet, here comes the woman, and I'm like, hey, dudes, I burp and fart just like you. So like, if you're here to make a mark, make a difference, do good, then we'll do fine together, just give me a chance. And that kind of broke things up, but I shouldn't have to had said that and to do something to put them at their ease. So I always felt like women didn't necessarily support each other or have the tools to be successful. So I started She Can, a nonprofit, a 5013C, and it was research based. And I just kept on asking people, what's your biggest challenge? What's your biggest challenge? And it always came up that I don't have time for what's important. And so that's when I coined the term time poverty, because, we think about poverty, we think about wealth, but we don't necessarily think about time poverty. But yet time is our most cherished asset. And, you've got to treat it that way and make smart decisions on how you allocate your precious time.
Yeah, wow. That's one thing about you too. You're a great researcher. And then we had some discussion about your new book, Beyond Busyness, How to Achieve More by Doing Less. I can see from the nonprofit and the experience you had in life that doing this research and really trying to find out how to treasure your time while still being able to do your work and but really having more happiness, like you said, in your life. And you laid out many statistics that literally shocked me in your book. What are some of those stats so we can understand the impact of a burnt out busyness addict?
Yeah. 75% of people don't have time for basic self-care. And I'm not talking about going on a 6-week vacation or taking 2-hour lunches or being able to go to the gym every day. I'm talking about simple things like keeping your dentist appointment and not canceling it 3 times because it's not a good day to go to the dentist, or not taking a half an hour for nourishment, or making sure sleep is a priority. That's a good stat right then and there. And I think the other one is in the workplace, whether we're entrepreneurs or business owners, we tend to overstuff our schedules. 64% of people overstuff their schedules to such an extent they don't have time for their basic core job responsibilities. So they get to the end of their day and it's like, well, I need to do this, this, and this, and the day is gone. What do I do? Well, you've got two choices. You're burnt out, you're tired, you can stay and plug on through and I just ground through it, or you can go home and feel guilty. And it's like a lose-lose proposition. So until we really start to draw the lines and draw the boundaries and really start to practice what I call performance by design, where you make good, intelligent choices on how do you spend your time, that's when the transformation happens. And it's not a big macro job. It's a micro job, just a couple of small day in, day out decisions. You feel a little better. You dive into a few more things. And it's just this thing that just keeps on snowballing. And it just, creates more space for you to be the best you possible.
So before we get into your book and that 3-step process to go from poverty to time wealth, I wanted to ask a question. What would be the first thing that a person would recognize about their life? What do you think is the most important thing that right now somebody listening to could recognize about their life that makes them realize they are just doing too much and not paying attention to their own needs? What would be something that could really stand out for them that could identify that they need this help?
Well, one thing is you're running really hard, but bottom line measurable metrics aren't improving. So you're working really hard, but you're not working on the right things. Another stat would be your relationships are failing and you don't have time to be the best manager that you can, or to be the best friend that you can, or to be the best wife that you can, because other things are taking priority and you put that person on the back burner. And it makes me think about my son who's grown, and he's 35 years old and he's in Boston and I'm in Palm Beach. So we have this long distance relationship thing going on, and I call him all the time and I'll be like, hey dude, it's mom, how you doing? And he'll be like, I'm busy. I don't have time to talk now. And, we forget that busyness has an impact on everybody around us, our teammates, our families, our friends. It's not something we do in solo. The other day I reached out to a girlfriend because I was feeling really sad. My sister is very sick and I just needed to talk. And I was just kind of grappling with what was going on. And I reached out to her and I said, I really need a friend. I really need to talk. And she texted me back and she basically said, my day's planned out. I'll try to call you tonight. And she didn't. And that was 2 days ago. And I sent an SOS and it just makes you realize that, you need to be there for your people. And, I don't know if I'm going to address this with my friend or, let it go, or how I'm going to deal with it. But I think sometimes we just get so into doing the things that there isn't room left to do the right things.
Yeah, the things that matter. I mean, we're only on this earth for so long, right? So you have a 3-step process to go from time poverty to time wealth. I'd love a summary of all three and delve a bit more into the one you start with on this journey. What do you start
Sure. Well, it's what I call the busy busting profit process. Sometimes for corporations, I call it performance by design, but it really has 3 essential steps. Step 1 is subtraction, which is really all about eliminating low value activities. We just all get stuck in these busy traps, and we don't realize that we're spending our time doing little things that don't matter, that adds up to a lot of time in our day. So that's step one, subtraction. Step two is really aligned with the neuroscience of happiness, and I call it mojo making. I wrote my first book about happiness, and what I learned there is that when we're happy, our brain neurotransmits different cells to our body, giving us energy, giving us dopamine, making us focus more. We actually fight off chronic disease when we're happy. Happiness is this superpower, but the problem is in society, we always think we needed to be rewarded, right? Like happiness is destination, a thing. I'll be happy when I'm about to speak to realtors. And so I've got when I sell the next couple of houses on my mind. But happiness isn't a destination, a thing. It's these tiny little micro moments we can create for ourselves. And for example, I eat dark chocolate every day. And I have this 90-second ritual where I uncover it, open it, I close my eyes and I smell it and just dive into the aroma. And my senses come alive, and it just kind of cools me down a little bit. And then I pop it in my mouth and I really taste it and I savor it. And it's like 90 seconds pushing the reset button. And we need more of these 90-second, more of these micro moments. I call them happiness rituals, but it's really about intentionally scheduling, 3-4 minutes of fun into your day, joy, happiness. And they're great for improving performance in an organization. When I did them for a customer service company, United Healthcare, their bottom line metrics improved 33%. And all we did was took 6 minutes out of our day, once in the morning and once in the afternoon. And we'd have cubicle dance parties, or we'd sing happy birthday, or whatever we would do, watch Seinfeld clips. We just spent three minutes away from all the noise and smiling and laughing and just getting our mind off everything else that was going on. It really helped.
Wow.
And then
I love that. I love that second one because I love dark chocolate and I love the whole ritual. In fact, I'm thinking to myself, when I do eat the dark chocolate, I do make it a bit of a rich, like a celebration. Like just take a moment and just enjoy the fact that I'm going to only eat a little bit, but I'm going to really savor it. So I'm glad you said that that's something that's helpful because it's really something that I do. And it's funny when you said that. So step
yeah,
number 3 in the process. Yeah.
step number 3 is really about what I call values vibing. Our country is in what is called a purpose crisis, and that is we're way out of tune with our why and our how. And so, I believe we're not out of tune with our why. We know what our why is. It changes throughout life. But what we're out of tune with is our values. And your values are the how to get to where you want to go in life. And they should be consistent throughout most of your life. And so I did a lot of research to understand what values equate to I feel purposeful, I feel productive, I feel happy. What were those values? And what I learned is that there were 3 values that equate to that. One of them is energy management, which is all about self-care, but also about the mood you bring into a room, right? You walk into a room, are you going to be gloom and doom and the whole room is going to feel the effects and you're going to suck the life out of your room because your mood is contagious? Or are you going to walk in and be a mojo maker and be smiling and happy and bring everybody energy and fun? And you get to choose. It's your choice. A mood doesn't happen to you. You sign off on it. You bring it to the world. And so, that's why energy management, I think, is really important. So is growth. We are in challenging times, but are we learning from all these challenges? And are we taking on the right challenges? My dad always used to say, Toots, A day without learning something new is a lost opportunity. And I always say, Dad, I'm 8 years old. I hate arithmetic tables, memorizing the states. This is just not fun. I don't get it. And he says, Look, when you continuously do hard things and learn things, you flex your resiliency muscle. You learn that you are capable of doing hard things. So when the next thing plops on your doorstep, which it will, you have the skill set. You've honed that growth skill set to handle adversity and change and pivoting, which in today's world is really one of the one things we can count on, is that today's always going to be different from tomorrow. And the last value, which I think is just so important, is human connection. And it's just so easy to get into the groove of doing all the things we need to do and not paying attention to the humans that we're with. And especially at work, your boss doesn't have time for you. You don't have time to get to know your employees. Maybe you don't know about their family. You don't know what they like to do in their time off. You're not connecting with them. And so you're not working together to the best of your capacity. And when you form this human connection, the productivity, the enjoyment, all of those, all the magic at work really starts to happen. And yeah, metrics improve.
We'll be right back. If you feel stuck in doubt, fear, or low confidence, there's a way forward. I'm Lisa Andrea, Emotional Transformation Specialist with Ladies Who Leap Coaching. I can guide you to clear the emotional patterns holding you back so you can trust yourself again, feel confident in relationships, and step into a life of clarity and purpose. Visit ladieswholeap.com and click on the Let's Connect button to start your leap journey today. Let's get back to the show. So you're a powerhouse in the media front, and you've already done a TEDx on this topic, that what you talk about. So I'm in awe of what you've accomplished and hope it can be an inspiration to others. I know it's an inspiration for me. So while you're working to get to this level that you've gotten to now, I always love to ask, who provides you the support and help on those difficult days or those difficult times that you have?
Yeah, I think the one thing that I've really stepped into recently, gotten a lot better about, is self-awareness and knowing when enough is enough and being aware when I feel tired or run down or something's going on in my life, but also, being able to take a pregnant pause and say, hey, I just did something really hard and it went pretty well. Like, let's just celebrate that for a moment, right? We just move on to the next thing. And I know for me, over the next 5 weeks, I've got 6 speaking gigs. And, I very intentionally, after each speaking gig, gave myself a morning or an afternoon off to just celebrate it and just say, okay, you did that. That's great. Feel good. Give yourself some energy and some credit.
So it's not necessarily that you have a go-to person. You yourself celebrate what you're doing to give yourself the support to keep continuing on.
Yeah, it's about self-awareness. And, it's funny, the other day, I think I was getting my hair done and my hairdresser said something like, Peggy, women look up to you and how successful you are. And I took a step back and I'm thinking to myself, I don't see that, And she's like, oh my God, everybody talks about you and you're the role model. And I thought to myself, well, why don't I see it? And then I thought to myself that I need to do a better job of feeling good about the things I do well and the hard work I put in and owning that as well as the hard work.
Heck yeah. One of the last questions I'm going to ask, is there anyone that was in your audience when you were speaking or you've worked with that has a really great impact story that you'd like to share with the listeners?
I think I had a coworker. His name was Randy. And when I worked at Blue Cross Blue Shield, he headed up the sales department. And he did really well with senior management because he was somebody who really pushed his team to sell a lot. So the numbers were really good. But employees were really burnt out. They were tired and they really weren't engaged and they didn't really enjoy their boss. And one day Randy was like, oh, sales numbers aren't what I want them to be. Everybody's going to work overtime. And he pulls everybody into a conference room and they're all starting to work on proposals. And the security guard comes up and he's like, Randy, there's no windows, but there's a snowstorm out there. You're not going anywhere for 6 hours. And Randy's like, yes, we're going to get a lot done. This is great. And then he looks around the room and he realizes everybody is exhausted. But what he really realized that all of his relationships with employees, some that had been with him for 5, 10 years, had become really transactional. You know, he didn't know what they like to do on their days off. He didn't know about their families. He didn't know their pain points at work. And it just struck him. And so he decided from that moment forward that human connection would be as, if not more important than, trying to get stuff done and always try to chase goals. And what he found that when he put his people first, the metrics really started to rise and that the team was like a well-oiled machine. They were supporting each other. They were happier. They were healthier. And so, it's people love to be seen, and it's important that you let them know that you do see them and you do hear them. And the other thing is, we all need help along the way. We all have questions. We all don't necessarily know exactly what to do. So, when you're an active one, you're not getting the benefit of somebody else telling you what's worked for them or a different approach. And hey, maybe it's more effective. Maybe it's more efficient. Who knows?
Yeah, is to elicit some assistance, some help, and understand how to even be there for your employees, to actually, that whole communication of how to communicate better with them, how to listen better, how to change the environment that they're in. Because you're right, it definitely promotes more money and more productivity if people are happy. I mean, it's just that whole, like I've talked with somebody else about that paradigm shift of making relationships even as important, if not more, like you said, than just doing the job itself. Because again,
Yeah.
people buy from people, right? I've been a salesperson. I was in that, that whole account manager role for many, many years. And I know that people buy from people. And that's about relationships. So that's really important. So in the
So
end,
true.
yeah, in the end, I love to have my guests share their favorite quote, mantra, or positive affirmation with the audience and kind of why you choose it. Or if it's something that you've been using all your life, there's your reasoning around that. So what would you like to share with everybody today?
That busy isn't better. I mean, you ask 10 people in a room, would you rather be busy or less than busy? And everybody will raise their hand and they say they want to be busy. But data shows that busy is not better. We're not more productive. We're not healthier. We're not happier. We don't get closer to our goals when we're busy. We're actually get further away from them and life isn't intentional. So busy is not better.
And I'm guilty of saying when somebody says, "Oh, can you come to do this or whatever?" No, I'm too busy, I would say. So I'm going to take that out of my vocabulary. And I think everybody should get your book because the information that you're sharing here is probably just a very small piece of what is included in the book so they can really understand how to change how they look at their own time. We only have so much time in our life. We really need to pay attention and we need to prioritize ourselves while we're paying attention.
You
So thank
do.
you.
And if that means saying no to something, that means saying no to something. If it doesn't align with your values and with your priorities, it's perfectly fine to say no and make space for something that does align. So, it's not actually saying yes to everything. I had some appointments later on today. And I canceled one of them because it wasn't a must have. And it was, I just said yes because I felt a little pressure and this person wanted to meet with me. And I just started thinking I have other things that are larger priorities right now. I want to spend my time on what's important, and I'll get back to this person, but it won't be today. Today is not the best day for that. And it's okay to sit there every day and align your priorities with what's going on and what you need to be doing.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So how can people reach you? What is the easiest, simplest way to reach you? And of course, I'll have any other links and things in the description of the show. But how can people reach you?
Yeah, I mean, it really, if they go to my website, peggysullivanspeaker.com, they can buy my book. I've got a lot of giveaways there, workbooks. I've got some surveys that they can take so they can figure out what their low value transactions are, their busy traps. I've got over 100 blogs. There's just a lot of resources that people can grab and use. And so it's the best way to be able to pick and choose what you need at the time.
Yeah. And if you want to have Peggy speak to someone, speak to a group, you can get a hold of her on her website also to do the same thing because she's an excellent keynote speaker. Thank you, Peggy, for joining the Ladies Who
You're
Lead
welcome.
podcast. I am very honored to have you here, and this has been so chock full of information. I keep thinking as you're speaking, oh, that's a little clip I could I could use. That's another little clip I could use, and just to share these little tidbits. They're like gems in the conversation that we've had today. So I really
Yeah,
appreciate
and
it.
I guess the parting thing I'd like to say is the micro moments, the small little things. You don't have to make big, huge changes. Just take a tiny little step. Eliminate one low value activity. Incorporate a happiness ritual. It's not going to take a long period of time, but you will feel better. You will feel relief. Just take that small, small step.
Yeah. And buying your book is one of them. And sitting down
Yeah.
because you're taking the time to do something for yourself. And I do find that sitting down and reading a book is definitely difficult sometimes when you're busy, but making the time to do that every day, sitting down and just reading a book, especially one that's going to help you to spend your time more wisely. I mean, you can't beat that. So
Yeah, and I definitely intentionally wrote the book knowing that people are busy and giving them an opportunity to read it one chapter at a time. Let that chapter stew and resonate. And there's a tremendous amount of humor. I think one of the first things people always tell me after they've read my book is I laughed my butt off and I learned something.
I love
So,
it. I love it. I love it. Oh, that's fun. Now I've got a stack of books because I have such great guests that have books that I have to read. And I'm going to be making time to do that and setting time aside. So yeah, definitely, especially if it's going to make you laugh. That alone is a happiness pill. Laughing is a
yeah,
happiness
the
pill.
first chapter will make you laugh. Second chapter will make you laugh. The third chapter will the thing is, when we're busy, we do really stupid things. And so I'm here to point out what type of things happen when you're over the top busy. It's a lot more than just eating cat food for dinner.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it. And everybody's like, subscribe so that you can know when the next episode comes out. And thank you for listening and have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, and you are quite welcome. I love the work you're doing, and I love your dream, create, and believe because we should dream, and then we should take action, and we should believe that we can do it. So those are three words that resonate with me.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye bye.
Bye. Thanks so much for listening or watching. Please subscribe to the Ladies Who Lead podcast to be notified of new episodes. And I would love to hear from you. Let me know what works, what doesn't, and if you have a story to tell, please reach out. Come join the Leap community at the Ladies Who Leap Club Facebook group. Remember, leaping out of your comfort zone is where the growth happens.